Brace for impact. Tomorrow morning, the Mueller report will be released and Mueller madness begins. Our sources telling us tonight, minimal redactions. The American people will see this, and still the media mob, Democrats, Trump haters everywhere, will get their one last itsy-bitsy chance to breathlessly, hysterically hyperventilate over nothing. A baseless, a vengeful hoax, a Russia collusion witch hunt that has come up totally and completely and utterly empty. No collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction. Now, no matter what sentences, paragraphs, pages, Democrats, the mob and the media fixate on, none of it changes the outcome. We already know the outcome. If you go to Vegas, you can bet on what I'm telling you. 4 separate investigations now have cleared Donald Trump and the Trump campaign, including the all-so-powerful special counsel filled with investigators who are, almost all of them, big-time Democratic donors, supporters of Hillary, even somebody who went to her victory party and a former lawyer of Hillary. After 22 months, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 230 court orders, interviews with approximately 500 people, the Mueller report, this is directly from the report, concluded, quote, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities, which, by the way, Devin Nunes warned us about in 2014. No one inside the Trump campaign, that means Donald Trump, conspired or coordinated with the Russian government. No one. That is now fact. 2.5 years, you've had your tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, your daily lies in the media mob, the Democratic Party, working in unison, in one voice, to slander, smear, besmirch, and destroy a duly elected president and everybody around him. They have for 2.5 years flat out lied to you, we, the American people, over and over and over again. And we've got the proof. Let's take a little trip down, well, memory witch hunt lane. Take a look.
We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants.
As if there are no shoes on the Trump human centipede that are not about Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
This cloud about collusion with Russia will hang over him no matter where he stands.
He may be the first president in quite some time to face the real prospect of jail time.
I think they're shocked that the noose is tightening.
It's clear that Mueller is now connecting the dots between a massive obstruction intended to hide the truth.
This president needs to be impeached. I believe that. I believe there was collusion.
Donald Trump's done. He's done. There's no question about it.
He's got to know his future looks like it's behind bars.
We have a treasonous president.
We now have to figure out how to deal with a president of the United States who wittingly or unwittingly has been compromised.
This is not funny. This is really bad. Just for the record, we're all really nervous.
The beginning of the end of the Trump presidency.
You can feel the thread being pulled. You can feel the clothes starting to come off the emperor. I believe this is the beginning of the end.
The president sees the walls closing in and is lashing out.
He's desperate. He's obviously flailing around because he feels the walls closing in.
He feels the walls closing in on him. The president has done everything he can in trashing the special counsel.
Mr. Trump is seeing more and more of the walls closing in on him, which is why he is becoming increasingly desperate.
What if he refuses to open the White House door? What if the secret, what if he fires any Secret Service agent who would allow the federal marshals in? What if Donald Trump simply decides, I don't have to follow the law. I refuse to be held under the law. No marshal can get into this White House.
The presidency is effectively a Russian op, right? Partisan warfare between Republicans and Democrats. This is international warfare against our country.
They're all psychotic. They've all lost it. They've all lied. Can anyone ever really believe the collusion truther, Rachel Maddow, ever again? She and all these others conning their viewers. And by the way, many for a lot of financial gain. Tomorrow, they will give it their one last college try. Good luck. And you can expect more of what you just saw on steroids and human growth hormone. But it is officially the media mob, the Democratic Party's last chance to revive their favorite psychotic conspiracy theories. they still don't know it's done. It's over. They lost again. It's election night all over again, 2016. And here's the sad reality. They'll never apologize. They won't retract false reports, retract their politically motivated daily hysteria, their breathless Russia, 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 impeach, 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 collusion, 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 insanity. Never. They'll never own up to being a part of the biggest, most dangerous fraud conspiracy theory ever perpetrated against we, the American people. And when they finally realized they lost, and they did, and they lied, and they did, and they failed on a spectacular level, and they did, they're just going to move on to the next lie, and then the next lie, and then the next conspiracy theory, and they're going to act as if this never happened. Bad dream. Hope you forgot. As I've said, mainstream media, so-called journalism, is dead in America. And the fools who claim to have a monopoly of facts, they don't want to report Mueller's key findings. Let me go back. From the Mueller report, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Mueller's words, not Hannity. A direct quote from the Mueller report. An undeniable, irrefutable fact. This is the paragraph that the liars on the left can barely bring themselves to acknowledge. But with the fake collusion narrative dead and buried, you can already see the mob switching their narrative. Oh, well, maybe we'll get him on obstruction. We need Trump's tax returns. We need to, we'll have a memorandum of understanding and we'll all agree to go after him on this. Now, get this. Obstruction of justice from a crime that was never committed. How can you obstruct without the underlying crime? And by the way, with the statute of obstruction, you need intent. That is required by law when one has consistently and repeatedly and loudly, like the president, rightly proclaiming his innocence. He acted the way innocent people act. They're outraged. So, of course, the president was never charged with obstruction, not by Mueller, not by the Attorney General's office, not even Uncle Rod Rosenstein. And tomorrow in the report, you might see information about, well, the president, he fired Jim Comey. Yeah, that's not obstruction. Even Comey pointed out the president can fire an FBI director for any reason or no reason at all. And you might hear, and they're going to hang on to evidence about, well, the president talked about firing Rod Rosenstein and other officials, like he talked about firing Mueller himself, or the president wished a 33-year veteran, a hero who served this country in combat, General Flynn, would not get in trouble. President talked about this is ridiculous. I hope he doesn't get in trouble. But guess what? The president never fired Rosenstein, never fired Mueller, never fired Sessions, never fired any of the Democrats hired to sustain the witch hunt. He never stopped the investigation. In other words, he never impeded, he never obstructed, he didn't impede against the case against Lieutenant General Flynn or any other target of this witch hunt. And shouting from a rooftop that you're innocent, as the president has, that you're a victim of a witch hunt, that's not a crime. Expressing frustration about injustice is not obstruction. Talking is not obstruction. Thinking about something is not obstruction. It's kind of like, well, like Rod Rosenstein and other deep state rats talking about wearing a wire because they wanted to spy on the president, or conspiring and talking about using the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. Now, there are officials right now in our DOJ, right now, they actually had those real conversations, but none of them are being charged with the crime because they didn't act, they didn't commit. One in this case, well, maybe others did, though, which we're going to get to. In this case, well, they didn't wear the wire. They didn't use the 25th Amendment. They never acted. They talked about it. Talking's not a crime. Now, if the Democrats, the hate Trump media mob, if they really cared about obstruction, and when you hear these people tomorrow, okay, I got a great case for them. Why, oh, why did they ignore the blatant obstruction of justice committed by one of their own, their favorite candidate, Hillary Clinton? Now, we know she violated the Espionage Act. It's a fact. She stored classified, top-secret information on an unsecure server. Here is the law. Irrefutable. You can see it right there. Incontrovertible and overwhelming evidence. Even Comey admitted she did this. Then she deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, washed the hard drive with bleach pit, removed the SIM cards, had an aide destroy her devices with hammers just in case those emails were still on there. Now, the media mob that will be so outraged over obstruction tomorrow, this was the biggest slam dunk obstruction case ever. It had an underlying crime and intent. The intent in this case, destroy the evidence of the crime. More media, more liberal, selective, phony moral outrage. That's what you'll see tomorrow. Remember in the Kavanaugh case? Oh, they were, I believe. Where are the I believers? Because we have serious allegations of rape and violent sexual assault right now against the Democratic Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. All the I believers are quiet. Now, we saw it with the Covington High School kids. They rushed to jail. They didn't even slander a 16-year-old kid. We see it with climate change. We see it with their new Green Deal and socialist policies. And by the way, Hillary was never charged with her crime because her investigation, which we now know, was rigged by the deep state. Just the upper echelon, not rank and file. And that's why Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, is now rightly investigating the investigation into the Clinton email scandal. And in this case, the evidence is overwhelming and incontrovertible. It's now crystal clear. We on this show, and we have this ensemble cast, radio and TV, our staffs, the people you see, all for the last 2 years. We've been right all along. The Clinton investigation was fixed in her favor by a few high-ranking government bureaucrats who wanted her to be president, wanted Trump to lose. Well, President Trump faced a modern-day political persecution at the hands of those very same people, the same people that gave her a pass, rigged her investigation. If the deep state was really concerned about collusion, and why is there no investigation into collusion? We now know Ukraine is begging to give them evidence. They're admitting they colluded to help Hillary in the 2016 election, thanks to John Solomon. We also know a Ukrainian government official did this, is admitting this, and has evidence to this fact to impact the 2016 election. So is Robert Mueller going to be reappointed to investigate the Clinton campaign and only hire Republican donors? And what about Clinton's bought and paid for dossier? Yeah, the dossier with, of all things, imagine this, Russian government lies, misinformation, propaganda, now debunked. Now, tonight, according to Politico, we're learning that the DOJ Inspector General's report will likely target the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele. That's fine, but the real focus, Mr. Inspector General, should be on the person that paid for that lying dossier, those that never verified that dossier and committed a fraud on the FISA court, those that leaked the information in that dossier to their friends in the media so they'd leak it before the election to influence the election, and those that used it to deny an American citizen, Carter Page, of his constitutional rights, and used those Russian lies to commit a fraud again and again and again, 4 separate times on the FISA court to spy on the Trump campaign. Now, thankfully, our calls for truth and justice are all about to be answered. After Mueller madness, hysteria, and breathless reporting tomorrow begins to die down, and it will, this is what's coming next in the coming days, months, weeks. There is a complete avalanche of truth that will start to cascade down on all of the deep state bad actors, the corrupt media, the Democratic Party, all the people missing in action in what is the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in American history. We're talking about criminal referrals coming from Congressman Devin Nunes. More criminal referrals we expect from the Horowitz report. His report on the FISA investigation, committing fraud to FISA court judges. They knowingly lied to those judges. And let's not forget the Uber investigation on leaking by these officials. The 302s, conversations, Christopher Steele, Bruce Orr, the applications, the FISA applications themselves, especially the last one, I'm told, pages 10 through 12, 17 to 34. Then we'll get the Gang of 8 information. What did the FBI know? When did they know it? We might get information on Christopher Steele from a court in Florida. And this is very important. AG Barr's investigation into spying. They spied on the Trump campaign. It happened. Now, these investigations will bring a lot of bad actors to justice. The consequences will be steep. And to date, we have been right about everything that has transpired surrounding the deep state's abuse of power, the witch hunt into President Trump. And tomorrow, you will see the last mass hysteria freakout on this topic. There'll be another one, and it will pass. Now, this week, I nearly had a heart attack. Why? Well, a columnist from the Washington Post Didn't they get a Pulitzer like the New York Times for their hoax coverage? He had courage to admit in an article titled, look at this, Fox News has been right all along. Gary Abernathy, I'm worried for his job tonight. He writes, quote, Fox News hosts like Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and especially Sean Hannity have been slammed for spending nearly 2 years clamoring for an investigation of the investigators. It would behoove serious journalists to put aside their political biases and delve into a story that might actually be worthy of Watergate comparisons, even if it includes the painful admission that Fox News has been right all along. Wow, imagine that. Talk show hosts, right again. We've listed all the times we've been right and they've been wrong. You know, I am a talk show host. I sometimes report straight news. I have hundreds of hours of coverage. We've done investigative reporting like vetting Obama. We have for the last 2 years. We also offer strong opinions. I don't hide it. Sometimes we talk about sports culture and even laugh and have fun. Like if you're a talk show host, you're like the whole newspaper. You're a member of the press, the free press in America, and every news division in this country was wrong. Except I will say, people in our news division like Catherine Herridge, Ed Henry, I'm not going to name everybody. We even had our own sources. I had my own sources. And by the way, I will protect them to the grave. And by the way, I hope, Mr. Abernathy, I hope you don't get fired. The truth actually got out in the Washington Post. Only one small part of our promise to hold the deep state accountable. The investigations taking place right now in the DOJ and Congress are the only thing standing in the way of this country becoming a banana republic. If we don't investigate investigators, lock up the bad actors, this country will be over as we know it. All must be held to account, including those who rigged Hillary's probe, persecuted Trump, spied on a political campaign, tried to rig a presidential election, attempted a deep state coup on a duly elected president of the United States. If justice is not served, say goodbye to our democratic republic. Say goodbye to your freedoms. You can say goodbye to your precious rights endowed by our Constitution and Creator, God. We must protect also the 99.9% of good people in the FBI, in the intelligence community that protect the innocent people here and around the globe, premier agencies around the world. It's only 1% that did wrong. We either get equal justice that we deserve or we'll have no country.